Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Skeeter Racing YouTube channel. Today we're going to be talking about the new motor platform for the 240SX. Now, if you follow the channel, you've seen that we actually bought an LS1 for this car, but after teardown of that car, that LS1 was going to need a whole lot of work. The block was going to need sleeved, the heads were going to have to be completely rebuilt, new rods, new pistons. If that really wasn't in the budget for this car, it was going to delay how long this car was down, and that time has already gone so much further than I wanted it to be. So it was back to the drawing board at that point. I had to completely look at different motor platforms, what I wanted to do. I was kind of chucking around all sorts of ideas. RB, go get a 5.3 instead of an LS1. And then this deal came along. So a good friend of mine has an S13 that had this KAT in it. He's wanting to go with a 1J, already had the motor and everything, and he cut me a really good deal on this. If me and my brother would go pull it out of his car, he would give us a really good price on it. And so we did. Everybody was happy, he was happy, I was happy, and now we're back to the KA platform, but a KAT. Being that it was a good friend, I got to hear the car run, I got to hear the motor run. It was quiet, it was clean, idled great, so I was very comfortable with buying this motor. Now after we got this motor home, there were a couple things that we wanted to address. These are things that I didn't realize at the beginning, but it wasn't a deal breaker by any means. Let's check those out.
This was set up with a ECU pigtail. So back in the day, they kind of had a way of tapping into your factory harness and tricking the ECU into basically being able to somewhat tune it off of slicing into factory harness. And I know a lot of cars ran it for years and it ran great, but since then we've come really far in tuning. And that is one of the things I wanted to get fixed on this car. I did want to actually get a tuned ECU in here. So when we put the fuel cell on this car, we went with a pretty big fuel pump, something that was way overpowered for a stock KA, because we knew in the future that this car would have a different motor platform. We weren't too sure at the time what it would be. And anyways, whenever we did that, it blew out the factory regulator. And we've put the same pump in two 240s now, and it's done the same thing almost immediately, blows out the factory regulator. Now, I got a plate that was gonna go over this and delete this factory regulator. Well, it doesn't fit, it doesn't look good, and so this is honestly wide open. There's no pressure being regulated by this at all. So what we did here is we went ahead and hooked it up to the factory vacuum port down here, ran it up to here just like before. But we wired into it right here, and I have an aftermarket fuel regulator that mounts to this bolt right here. So it'll Y off and then it'll go to the regulator, and I can set the regulator there to have the proper pressure, and that will be after the fuel rail. So it'll go in through all the injectors, out and into my regulator here, and so I will know after the rails it has the proper fuel pressure. We ran that all season last year, and it worked fantastic this way. Just wanted to show you in case anybody had a similar issue. This is how we got around fixing that, and this is where our vacuum came from. All right, now on this side, all of the positives are hooked up from the relays. So these are the red wires, are all of the power coming in from the battery. So positive right here from the battery is going to come in. It's going to feed through these to the relays, and then the white cable here is going to go to the switch, and when the switch is activated, it will then send power to the blue wire right here. Now I'm going to go ahead and hook up all of the negatives, and then I'll probably switch over to this side and do the same thing, all the powers and all the negatives. And this is one common negative here, and this negative is going to go out through this hole here, and then it will be actually mounted to the chassis. So this one is going to be grounded to the chassis. My battery, on the other hand, is going to be run all the way to the engine block, and then I may even tie off of this chassis ground and go to the engine block, or may just run this to the engine block. It's always better if you can get it to the motor and ground it on the actual motor, but we'll just see how much wire I have. I really don't want to have to spend a whole bunch more money just to run it to the block, when this would probably be fine to go off of the chassis ground.
Now, with seeing the condition of everything else on the car, we have decided to go with an all-new chassis harness that's just bare minimum, just headlights, taillights, turn signals, and power for the ECU and the ignition and all that stuff. And now, to pair up with my custom chassis harness, I have gone ahead and ordered a custom wiring harness from Wiring Specialties that's just going to come with flying leads. And what that means is, instead of a connector that'll connect into a chassis harness like it does on the normal car, that connector is going to have just wires at the end that are labeled with what they go to. Then I can plug that into my custom relay box and fuse box and get it all set up how I want it to be, and I don't have to worry about all the extra wires. So with that, I think we're done with this video. Now we're just waiting for the ECU to come in and the wiring harness to come in, and then we'll be able to get this sucker running pretty quickly. There was a lot of downtime between my last video and this upload, and that's really because we're trying to decide what to do. With the LS being pretty much junk and needing a completely rebuild and needing to be completely built, it really just kind of threw a wrench in the gears. Wasn't too sure what to do, where to go with the car. I really didn't want to take a step backwards, definitely wanted to go forwards, and this came out the perfect time, the perfect deal, and I'm very, very grateful for that. In the next video, we're going to be starting this car up for the first time. I'm going to be wiring up the Wiring Specialties harness to my custom fuse block. We are going to do kind of a test panel first instead of fully wiring it all out. Really, I just want to make sure that we can get this car running in this platform. And then we'll go ahead and do final bolting on everything, run all the wiring that we need to. Until this motor fires off in this car, we are going to wait just a little bit. Again, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.